I actually want to introduce our two speakers of today. I'm pleased to introduce Dan Dievendorf, President of LiveTiles, and Patrick Puntener, the CEO of CYCL, who will guide you through the call today and through the presentation and all the messaging. I hope this will be an interesting and lively webinar for you, and handing over to Dan, please.
Great, thank you, Rolls. Can you hear me fine?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. Hi, Patrick.
Hi, Dan.
I'd also like to note we've got Elaine Murphy, who's our Senior Vice President for EMEA, on the line as well, who's available for Q&A later on. But first of all, welcome everybody. Good afternoon for most of you. Good morning if you happen to be joining from the US. I know we have many CYCL partners and customers on the line. I think we've got a handful of LiveTiles customers and partners as well. But what I thought I would do today is just kick this off and jump right in, giving you a bit of an overview about what we're here to talk about today. So firstly, some of you may have some context around LiveTiles and the joining of CYCL into the LiveTiles group of companies, but may not know fully the LiveTiles story all up. Just quickly, LiveTiles is a globally publicly traded company. We're somewhat interesting. We have corporate headquarters in New York City, where I'm based, and speaking with you today. But we are publicly traded on the Australian Stock Exchange as well, with our co-founders' roots being from Australia, splitting their time between New York and in the region there. We have offices throughout the world, though. Offices throughout the Asia Pacific, the US and Canada, and certainly throughout the European Union and the Middle East. So we're happy to speak to you from all locations, but happy to know that we've got many folks from Europe on today's call. I thought I would start today with our vision. Visions can always be a bit high level, but I think it will help guide the conversation, understand why our companies have come together and where we're going with our 2020 roadmap and beyond. So our vision is actually quite simple. It's to revolutionize the way humans interact with technology, and in subtext, how technology interacts with humans. So you can probably think to yourselves about what that means in your own world, whether you're providing services to customers or products to customers, or whether you are utilizing technology yourself. But for us, our roots are very strongly matched in providing and matching people to information, and to have strong experiences that help people do their best work. And that's really what guides all of our philosophies and principles and actions and our strategies, from everyone from our CEO and board down through all of our employees. Next slide, please. So when we bring our products to market, our basic reason for being is this. We focus on simplifying the complex at the root of it. And some of that's through user experience, some of it's through contextual design, and a lot of it comes through feedback in terms of how people actually interact with our people and our teams, so that we can deliver the best products possible and that our extended customers and partners can make use of that. That's really why we exist as a company. And I think that's important to note, particularly for LiveTiles and CYCL joining, because we need that complete culture match and vision to be able to bring a cohesive set of products and services and value to the market. And we hope that comes through in today's discussion. Next slide, please. So I thought what I would do is just go through a little bit of where we've come from, because I think this is really tells a more complete story when you bring it down to the people and the experience. And this may sound familiar to many of you in your own companies. Collectively, between the 6 co-founders you see on the left-hand side, there's over 100 years of experience in creating, founding, or running businesses that are focused on digital experience, digital collaboration, productivity, and data, and matching people with data. And you can see, kind of going back to the early days of LiveTiles, we started as a UX company, transitioning from a services-based mindset into more of a product-based mindset to what we called at the time, make SharePoint sexy. It was very focused on a quick, easy page designer that could be deployed both throughout Office 365 and SharePoint, as well as Azure Pages, and bringing together other very intuitive products that made things faster, better, cheaper for the end user and for the people implementing the technology. So it's very much a design-driven thinking. Moving on to Wizdom, here in the middle, Wisdom's guiding principle was and always has been to create the world's best intranets. And they created the Wizdom Intelligent Intranet, and more specifically, something we'll get into later on called the Power Panel. But their vision was really to be the most comprehensive, modular designed intranet that could handle the most tightest requirements in terms of governance, in terms of user variety, types of organization, size of organization, and user demands. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit. And then moving forward to the CYCL team joining us, their vision, Patrick and Matthias's, was really matching people with information. And they've brought many products to market that you may be familiar with, including Matchpoint Hub, Condense, both as a content management system, and the Pocket Intranet, lighter touch intranet, and then the Enterprise Graph, which Patrick will talk about in a little bit. But bringing together high value yet low touch products that create better user experiences, more importantly, help people get to information and help to do their work. Next slide, please. So many of you hear the term intelligent from day to day, whether you're listening to videos from Microsoft or other vendors or industry organizations that do research. We talk a lot about the intelligent workplace, but when we think about the intelligent workplace, we don't represent it as a product. We really believe it is a concept. We really believe that it's a journey. And more importantly, it really depends on your organization's path along that journey. So transformation can take a long time. We're all on certain paths of transformation in our own companies, but it really depends on where your company is located in many ways, the languages your employees speak, the capabilities within your own company, what you're trying to address and bring to your users and your investment level, as well as what your industry demands of you, whether you're in a highly regulated space or perhaps in a lowly regulated space where you're trying to touch more first line and frontline workers. So we look to bring products to market that really help you solve that journey, whether it's you as a partner or you as a direct customer. So we'll be kidding on all these terms today throughout. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hand it over to Patrick to talk a little bit more about our specific capabilities in this space, and then I'll talk to you again a little bit later.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. So also welcome from my side. I'm actually based in Basel and speaking to you from Europe. And I would like to translate now how we see this, what Dan just mentioned, these different ways of actually going your journey to the intelligent workplace. You could also say in a more broader set to digital transformation, but our main topic in this transformation is really to make sure your workplace can deliver what you need. So as Dan has already mentioned, we see the intelligent workplace as a concept, and with our products, we want to help you to go the path that is best for you by delivering the corresponding product. And right now we support 4 different approaches that you see listed here. The first is the original LiveTiles Page Designer and the LiveTiles Cloud products. Dan already mentioned it. They support a design-driven approach. It means that they give you maximum of control and flexibility and the possibility to provide a fully customized user experience and branding, which is in line with your corporate identity and corporate design guidelines. It's an approach that helps you to provide a consistent experience across a multitude of content sources that is certainly well suited for large companies, for example, or those who have very high requirements regarding branding. Also, our other products come with some branding options, but they put the focus on other aspects. So for example, Wizdom, the second approach here, is all about providing the most comprehensive feature set for content authors and collaboration. So not only regarding the creation of content, but also its governance and to support advanced scenarios such as multilingual environments and complex targeting based on user profiles. That's what Wizdom does best. And if you have requirements in this direction, Wizdom is the best suited product to implement these. So the third approach is much more lightweight. It's our Matchpoint Hub, and that's the right choice for you if you like to use a thin layer across your content sources, providing consistent navigation, a great search experience, and personalized access to content and tools. And that is mainly building on the integration of the existing Office 365 toolset. So if you want to leverage things like Microsoft Teams for collaboration or SharePoint communication sites for communication, Microsoft Forms, Flow, Power Apps, Planner, Stream, Delve, and other Office 365 tools, then Matchpoint Hub is a good choice for you. And it can also be extended with Condense as an authoring environment if you look for more advanced content authoring features than SharePoint provides out of the box, for example. And then the fourth approach to the right you see here is Condense. Is our mobile first solution. And that's a good approach if you think that a big intranet is maybe not what you are looking for, or if you have the challenge to reach a lot of non-desk workers. I think all the other approaches are more or less traditional intranets based on SharePoint or other web-based technologies. And of course, they also come with the capabilities to be used in a mobile app. But Condense is different. It's exactly the other way around. It's mobile first. So the app is the main tool you're using, and there is a responsive web page as the second choice. So you could say it's like a pocket intranet that is extremely simple to set up and use. And we also call it zero touch because actually setting it up only takes a minute. Can be done by the customer itself, so there is no implementation project at all. And we also deliver some packaged onboarding services that enable you to be ready to go within just a few days. So as you see, we have really 4 completely different approaches to guide you and follow you through your journey. But there's more to it. Because all these approaches, or as we also call it, experiences, they are all backed by the same intelligent platform. And as far as we know, we are the only vendor with a common intelligent backend behind multiple experiences. I would like to go a little bit into more detail why this is important. I think the good experience is key from an end user's perspective, but the technology behind can be very important for your organization because it's what makes your workplace platform really intelligent and where we now can provide a huge competitive advantage also in the long run. Since all your experience actually share the same, since all our experience actually share the same intelligent platform, you can easily start with just a couple of services that suit your needs today and then adding additional services when needed. So if you just imagine, for example, that your requirements might change over time, you might be growing as an organization, or you might undergo a transformation yourself, and maybe the technology that you're using today will not suit your needs tomorrow. If you have a platform that grows with you, where you're able to switch from one experience to the other and to add more functionality if needed, you can stay on this platform and you can protect your investment and move in a very agile way and not being forced to switch to something new after a short term already. So let me describe a little bit the different elements of this platform. At the core, and that's probably one of our major differentiators also, we are using our own graph technology to drive the entire workplace experience based on data, context, and user behavior. The graph is something that is has been mentioned also by analysts like Gartner recently to become the new core or the nucleus of the digital workplace. and it's connecting all the dots that were limiting our vision, agility, and productivity in the past. Sometimes very difficult in this set of unstructured data that people are working with every day to find a common context. And also other technologies that are arising, like Project Cortex from Microsoft, provide more insight in the data. But what we are striving for with the graph is to actually integrate data from any system. So it doesn't really matter where your data is. We connect it based on the requirements. So the counterpart of this graph is the intelligent employee profiling. So that's the technology that originally comes from Hyperfish, which also has been acquired by LiveTiles, I would say a little bit more than a year ago, so maybe 18 months, 2 years now. And it helps you to get richer staff profiles, which is in turn a very important basis for content targeting, for example, and also most of the other intelligent aspects that you see here in our platform, because they can only develop their full potential if they know something about the user. And the more complete profiles you can provide, the better you can do the other things. So for example, if you want to make content more relevant, based on locations, based on departments, based on also roles a user has in your organization, this requires that you have this information about the user, and our intelligent employee profiling is helping you to do this based on AI and also user interaction. And a second very important aspect about the intranet is that we believe that it will become omnipresent. So it's not anymore that you have to go to your intranet and that your intranet is just a collection of some pages with information, but the intranet or the digital workplace, the intelligent workplace, will follow you wherever you are. And that's where the Power Panel that Dan already mentioned comes in. It's a new way of presenting information, giving access to tools and insights that is not any longer bound to just the browser, but that is, as I said, omnipresent. And that's something you will see more of in the coming months. It's a very important pillar of our strategy. Another part of our intelligence comes from our assistants. So you might already have heard of the LiveTiles bots, but we think that in general, intelligent assistants will be a very important part of an intelligent workplace, and they will help you to become more productive and to maybe also automate tasks that are repetitive. And a last important piece of the puzzle is LiveTiles Intelligence, providing you actionable insights in how your workplace is being used. And that allows you in turn to make data-driven decisions to further enhance your user experience and content. Okay, so now I talked a little bit about our technology, and one important aspect, maybe also for our partners, is that we also have a very comprehensive service offering that goes hand in hand with the implementation services and consulting services that our partners offer to customers. So you see here a little overview of what we offer. It ranges from discovery support to help customers figure out which is the right technology, which is the right product in our portfolio to fulfill needs. That's also open for partners, of course, to discuss for their customers. And we certainly also focus on areas that are very specific and can be very difficult for partners to deliver. So maybe if you're a traditional SharePoint integrator, you don't have all the skills regarding, for example, identity and security management that are only needed in certain scenarios, but that can become more and more important, like, for example, if customers want to build extranets instead of intranets and want to start collaborating with external entities, and identity management all of a sudden becomes very important. So we have these skills. They can be accessed by both customers and partners. And then, of course, last but not least, we are putting a big focus on customer success, because our promise is that our customers will be more successful, more productive with our products, and we also want to make sure that we can keep our promise, of course, by helping you throughout your journey. I'm handing back to Dan to go a little bit into more detail on the technical side.
Great, thanks, Patrick. On the screen now, you'll see a very high-level architecture in terms of how we're thinking about the building blocks that make up what Patrick referred to as our common back end. This has been a part of our strategy, both from our internal research and development, as well as the companies that we've brought together. And the way we think about this is sort of at the root, we believe data and services are ultimately feeding the experience. So if we start at the bottom, you can see the knowledge graph, whether it's data or feeds or databases or information from Microsoft or other line of business apps feeding into the LiveTiles services backend. We have from left to right, we've got intelligent content being served. So content that's contextualized and personal to the user. We have intelligent data that can be proactively gathered through Hyperfish, again, feeding things like the employee profile to know more about the people that are using your technology and the information that they need to either do their works or how to serve them better as an employee. Thirdly, we have intelligent events and notifications, so more push communications and things that are richly targeted based on the data that's served. And lastly, something that Patrick also keyed in on, which are analytics and insights, which tell you quite a bit of information about your employees' behavior using your systems, what are they interested in, and everything else. But if we jump up to the top here, that form the experiences off of the building blocks being fed by the services, you'll start to see some boxes here and some different channels that, as Patrick mentioned earlier, we may see people accessing an intranet in a much different way into the future as they are today. So we believe that an intranet isn't necessarily going to be a classic homepage or set of pages with static or even to some degree dynamic content. We think it's going to be very fluid and omnipresent. Some of that's fed by navigation and some of it's fed by channels. So it could be a channel such as Microsoft Teams, which we are spending a lot of time bringing information and contextualized information into, to mobile devices, to kiosks, and as well as the desktop as well. So we want to make sure that the information can be channeled to the user wherever they might be working and have it not be specific to the things that are driven by necessarily a page or a traditional web-based experience. And I guess another point that I will make, our concept around the intelligent workplace being a concept and more of a journey than just a grouping of products is, you can see in the lower right hand corner we've got sort of an open box here in terms of a services fed approach, and also on the top right the next thing. A core tenet of what we've really created within LiveTiles, and certainly it's inherent in the companies that we've brought together, is that we spend a lot of time on research and development, design thinking, following the market, looking at things like the Microsoft roadmaps and where cloud technology and where digital experience is going. And we also know that we may not have all the answers right at our fingertips today. So we do quite a bit of work in this area to make sure that as our customers take us on this journey, and as our partners take us on this journey, that we leave an open mind to whatever the next thing is. The next thing could be a new channel, it could be a new set of a way of consuming information, or it could be a new experience. But these are things that we remain open to through input channels and by our partnerships with all interested parties, to make sure that we are helping form this space as well as add value to it. Moving forward, I want to talk to you a little bit about the journey and the way we look at this. The journey you can see here, and this is the journey, you can categorize it however you would like, whether it's digital transformation, intelligent transformation, or digital experience. We look at it this way. basically 4 main quadrants from the lower left to the top right. And you can see here from the x-axis sort of lower basic, more simplified experiences to very highly intelligent, personalized experience, to the y-axis, moving productivity throughout the continuum of helping people do their jobs more and giving them the access to information to help them do so. But if we look at where many customers are today, they sort of toggle between the classic intranet zone and what we call the intelligent intranet zone. And I would put people, most customers and organizations are just beyond the classic intranet zone in many cases around the world. And that varies with where people are at with cloud adoption as well. But classic intranet solves for very common things which we're used to seeing, which is strong UI, corporate comms, serving up content, governance of pages and users, basic search or enterprise search, as well as having flexibility around the look and feel and corporate branding and standards. I think most of us are pretty comfortable with that in terms of a classic intranet today. What we're moving into in what we call the intelligent intranet is where you start to get more curated information around users and their behaviors. So when Patrick talked about Hyperfish earlier, we do focus the Hyperfish story largely around accurate people data, and that is understanding all aspects of a user's job and profile, location, department, and function, and potentially even interests that can be proactively collected to help understand that user's place in the company and the type of information they need to do their job, and to help to give them a view or a lens into the rest of the company. And what that does is it allows personalized and targeted content as well, but it also allows the user to be able to control certain preferences, which you typically would not have in a classic intranet. And another key component of this is that when you get into the intelligent intranet zone, you start to see multi-channel approaches. And that could be something from looking at web-based pages or responsive or mobile-based pages and content, or app-driven content, or even things like working in and sharing information between SharePoint and Teams. So we also invest quite heavily in secure collaboration. This is a place where Microsoft does quite a bit with AIP, or Azure Information Protection, as well as things that we do in terms of sending documents and content and information in transit between devices and those channels. So we look to supplement and complement those things. There's other pieces as well that we do as we get into the collecting of information around the employees and their functions. We can also automate org charts, and that's a key component that usually many organizations have a hard time curating. They typically do a really good job at the higher level within the organization, but as it gets into departments and functions, and particularly in matrixed organizations, it gets harder to curate that information. And that's part of what we do with the intelligent data collection story. And of course, really any modern day intelligent intranet would have to have analytics and audience targeting as part of that. But what goes beyond that? If you start to think about what we call this digital workplace zone, this is where you start to expand beyond the typical content consumption, collaboration channels, and you start to get into third-party applications. Third-party applications may be something that sit across Microsoft's Office 365. It might sit in your own custom apps. It might be line of business applications for HR or your ERP, or even your sales-based applications for CRM. So what we want to do is we want to ensure that if you're creating an experience that expands beyond the intranet, that it's not just basically an icon-driven click out where you're popping into another experience. We want to make sure that information and that those rights and the governance that follow that integration allow you to serve up that information to that user, and to make sure that they have that seamless experience. So you're less tied to the traditional intranet and more tied to the collective experience that sits across your communication channels as well as your productivity applications. And this also starts to get into what we refer to as AI-driven personalized content. So this is content that's now starting to, as Patrick mentioned, whether it be through Cortex or through our graph technology, start to see what types of information and data people are viewing and what's most important to help them to do their jobs, and driving more personalized content through channels directly that they work within. And the last quadrant here is the intelligent workplace zone. And I hesitate to call this the utopia, but it's something that I think many organizations that we work with across the world are starting to think about, or starting to put in place a longer term roadmap and strategy around this. So we believe that this, the very core thesis around this is that it has to be accessible from anywhere. And that's just not a device. It's any location, wherever that person sits with any sort of network, and then it's always secure. We want to take the next iteration of this AI-driven contextual information and ensure that that follows all line of systems, all line of business applications and systems. So we look at this as really what we believe is forming the basis for intelligent experience and an intelligent experience platform. And you'll hear much more about that as we get through future roadmap discussions and certainly what we're doing with our research and development. When Patrick mentioned Hyperfish, today the core thesis is around understanding users and their user profile. But the technology is also being used now and into the future for intelligent data agents. So intelligent data agents are basically being able to collect information from any system or any user across your digital workplace. And that can feed a variety of opportunities around the graph and personalized content, and understanding ultimately how your employees are using these systems, but also ensuring that the information as it starts to flow between different line of business applications and different environments, that it's also secure. And the last thing I'll just key in on here are around virtual assistants. We've seen quite a bit around virtual assistants and bots over the last couple of years. We were early adopters of bringing bringing products to market in this space, and what we've learned is that you've got to be very clear around the use cases to ensure that you understand how conversations happen between a bot and a human, and more importantly, how to help automate and have that bot deliver basically value, so that the end user does not have to worry about creating or repeating more simplified tasks, that the assistants are helping you do that. And that's driven across all zones, from digital workplace up through the intelligent workplace zone, through the AI-driven approach that we're taking across all of our products and the back ends. Next slide, please. So that's all well and good. We've got a lot in terms of plans into the future. We're very excited about our technology stack and what our partners and customers have helped us form in terms of our long-term roadmap and strategy. But we're also have a number of things on the near term that we're going to be delivering as well. So I'll go into a handful of these, and then I'll hand to Patrick to talk about the cycle and condense items. So for those of you that are familiar with LiveTiles Designer, we've recently released LiveTiles Designer version 5 for modern SharePoint. Again, this being the more flexible UI designer. What this does is it allows to drive a modern page design experience utilizing the SPSFX framework without having to turn on things like the custom scripting and so forth. So what you've got is a more seamless tool to help supplement and build a modern experience, which will supplement some portion of the overall digital workplace implementation. Also, Power Panel for Teams. So Power Panel is the omnipresent navigation that can connect through different functions and services. And we'll show you a visual of that here shortly. We've brought that functionality out of the intelligent intranet, the basis for the intelligent intranet being Wizdom, and then bringing that into Microsoft Teams so that the navigation and the connected services follows the user across any channel that they're on. Patrick, I might pass it to you to talk about Condense for a moment.
Yeah, you mentioned Teams, and I think Teams is a good example of how Microsoft is driving where people spend their time. They just wanted to build a competitor to Slack, and then Teams became very, very big in a very short time. And for us, it means that there are many users spending many hours of their work every day in Teams. And if you want to reach them with your corporate communications, the best way probably is to also be in Teams. So that's why we will bring Condense to Teams. Condense is today either the standalone app that you can use without any other tools. So you don't even need an Office 365 license for Condense. There's a SharePoint integration already. So you can bring your news, your events, your information you want to share, your knowledge, and also your conversations from Condense already into SharePoint. And it's just a logical next step to also bring them into Teams. And by this, we mean a real integration, not just displaying a web page, but having the possibility, for example, to synchronize condensed channels with the topics of your team. So you have more targeted content that is really relevant in a specific team, for example, or also to get a notification about new content and Condense directly in Teams without having to leave. Second, very exciting new feature in Condense will be the moderated chat. Of course, everybody knows typical chat tools like WhatsApp and also the chat features that you have maybe in Teams or also in Yammer. Moderated chat is something else. Moderated chat helps you to actually support your events with a chat feed. So let's say you have a large organization across the world and you want to have an all-hands meeting where people will attend in many locations. You can then set up a moderated chat event in Condense so that every participant can ask questions even before the event has started. A moderator will actually pick up the most important ones and ask them to, for example, the leaders in the all-hands meeting during the event. They will be able to answer it in the chat and answer the remaining questions after the chat event. So you have, after everything is completed, you have a full set of questions and answers, and you can support spread out events. For example, also Q&A sessions given by your support team, or many companies also started to run CEO chats where employees can ask questions to their CEO, and the moderator is just selecting the most important ones. So we are very excited about this new feature. This will be due for delivery about in June. And the last one, LiveTiles has recently announced a partnership with Canva. Canva is also a very successful Australian company, a SaaS company, providing a tool to create banners and headers for your news, for example, or for anything, for any page you want to look more appealing, but you don't maybe have the graphical skills to, and also not the time to draw something very complex yourself. And Canva is an easy tool where you can easily create interactive banners and then integrate them in your content. And of course, for Condense, it means that if you want to create a news or an event or a page, which all have the possibility to integrate a banner at the top, you will be able to use Canva with one click, create a banner, integrate it, and then publish it in Condense. Handing back to Dan.
Thanks, Patrick. Yeah, I'll just round this out here. So when we talk about LiveTiles Intelligence, that's really our analytics and visualization engine that sits in our back end. We are now bringing that across all of our products. So we typically had that across LiveTiles Design and LiveTiles Cloud and Bots products, and now we've got it being built and or delivered across the Wizdom Intelligent Internet, Matchpoint Hub, modern SharePoint pages, as well as the items that Patrick mentioned around condense. So what this does at the very basic level, it will give the user and administrators a heat map to understand sort of where eyeballs are going and content's being viewed and consumed. It also provides powerful page analytics and consumption analytics, but probably more importantly, it's going to give rich insights around how to build future adoption strategies. Part of that is could be fed into the product development piece, or it could be fed into the experience for administrators to drive more recommendations for engagement across the digital workplace and the channels that your employees are working on. And then just lastly here, we have platform bots. So this is basically LiveTiles bots going first party. And what we mean by that is we are bringing a more standard and focused approach around delivering bots that could broadly be delivered to your users with lighter configuration or connections that help them interact more conversationally with a bot itself. And so some examples of this might be a communications bot that is doing communications or content summaries, helping drive the interaction through a type interface. Certainly search. Search is something that obviously all of us are always trying to refine and solve for. Search is quite a journey, particularly across large enterprises. So having more first-party bots built for search. Regarding Hyperfish, collecting data from users, whether it's around things like onboarding or future questions or input that an organization may want from their employees, using the Hyperfish technology to help deliver that. And again, just creating a more contextualized experience so that people aren't endlessly typing into a conversational interface, that it's giving real insights or real returns of information with a first or second level chat that can get you connected to the information that you need. So what I thought we'd do now, Patrick and I are going to talk about a couple of showcases. So we want to talk about a couple of customers. We have one here that I'll talk through briefly. We have it's a European-based bank. What you'll see in the image of the screenshot and highlighted here down the left-hand side, that's a very simple representation of the power panel, and that's where I want to key in on this particular customer. What they've done is they've got a simple but elegant use of the power panel, and think about any sort of bank with a high number of users, very highly regulated industry, distributed teams, variety levels of access to systems and content, particularly things like financial data. Behind the scenes governance of this information, how to display that experience could be quite complex. But through a variety of design sessions and rolling out the intelligent intranet at AL Bank, they've been able to create a very simplified power panel that does a number of very powerful things. The top item here you can see that they've been able to do is they've been able to create corporate messages. And again, because the power panel is omnipresent, you can create corporate messages from wherever you are, whether it's in Teams or SharePoint or other places, so that you don't have to navigate to a central point, and you can get that information out and targeted right away. This particular customer was challenged by having 5 different applications that drive their search. We were able to use the power panel to connect to those different search applications to interrogate data across those engines to understand and provide results that are more tailored than they would have done through a separate interface or through a unified navigation bar. So this has been a huge win for them to get information to their users that they couldn't service in other ways. Just a couple other quick things here. They use the power panel also for targeted links. That's both corporate and sort of departmental links, tools, links to many tools which were previously on the front page. Now they follow the user throughout wherever they are on the internet or their digital workplace. And then some things that you guys are probably seeing is common use cases, being able to create and manage a proper IT support ticket, as well as being sure that things like governance assets and handbooks and such are delivered to the right user that's based on their role and the information gathered through their profile. So there's a number of things. I'll probably leave off there. I think what I would just summarize is that the Power Panel can be a very simple approach, but a very powerful approach to delivering adoption, but also serving the right information to the users. Patrick, I might hand it to you for the next showcase.
Yes. So the second showcase we want to present is NG. It's a CYCL customer using a combination of Matchpoint and Condense. I think many of you have seen NG cars driving around all over Europe. I've even seen an NG sticker on a technical apparatus in Australia when I was attending our leadership meeting in Melbourne 2 weeks ago. So it's a global company, and they are leading in facility management, energy services, and building technologies. And of course, by the nature of their work, they have a lot of non-desk workers. So we're serving them here in Switzerland with their new intranet, and in Switzerland they have 70% non-desk workers, which is really a lot. That's also why they started with rolling out Condense. The reason was that their actually main requirement was to reach people, and they wanted to have their employees more aligned and engaged on their strategy, and to help them to know better what the company actually does so that they can do their work in a better way. And another reason was also that Condense is rolled out very quickly, whereas the SharePoint based or Office 365 based intranet took more time. So they went first with the employee app using Condense, and then extended the experience also for the desk workers with a Matchpoint based intranet using Office 365, which they are also now extending to include collaboration based on Teams. One very interesting aspect that came up during the project was that the head of communications was actually looking for the compelling use case, because he said, okay, it's good to have news, it's good to be able to communicate to people, but actually that's just the company view. I think from a employee's view, maybe there are more important things than reading a company news. So we were looking actively together with NG to find such a use case, and it came out that they just wanted to hand out new instruction manuals to everyone on actually helping people how to maintain the different technical equipments in the buildings they were serving. So you have to imagine these were small booklets that all the NG employees have to carry around in their pockets, helping them to find information about the technical equipment. And the problem with this being on paper is, of course, that you have to update it several times a year, and it's also quite cumbersome to carry with you. So we suggested to digitize this documentation and create condensed pages. In Condense, you can create hierarchies of pages like in a normal intranet. And NG was immediately very keen to do this because they saw also a potential to better explain how to do things, for example, by just including a little video showing how something is done instead of writing 2 pages of text that nobody then reads. So that was the compelling use case we found, and we went with this very quickly, and all the NG engineers, they were really delighted to have such a tool, because everybody, of course, has a smartphone, and with 2 clicks can now access the full documentation about all technical equipment. And the best was that if there is a change, they just get a push notification on their lock screen. So they immediately know that there is a new documentation they have to look at. Then we have a third use case or showcase, and this is our own one. As you know, CYCL was acquired by LiveTiles. We merged in December, and as any company that is merging, we had a problem. Our technology basis was not integrated yet. This takes time, and at the same time, the need for communication was especially big because people want to know what will happen now, how is the strategy of the combined company, what is important for me, what will happen with my job, and so on. So there are a lot of questions, and it's very important to be able to communicate to everyone. So what we did is we used Condense to facilitate this communication, because Condense can support to connect to multiple Azure Active Directories. So we simply connected the ID of LiveTiles and Wizdom and CYCL to one Condense tenant and started communicating. So actually, basically on the first day, we were on the common platform without having to do any integration. It took us 5 minutes to set this up. And this is how it looks like. I'll play a little video. So you will see someone from CYCL logging into Condense, someone from Wizdom logging into the same Condense tenant, just with the normal corporate email address you always have, and someone from LiveTiles logging into the same Condense tenant. And what happens actually, they all get to the same content and see the full breadth of the Condense functionality. So everybody has access to our news, events, knowledge, and also people, and can communicate with each other. And the company can give directions through this tool. And what's also possible, I can now search people from LiveTiles or Wizdom, even though they are not in the same directory. So that's very, very useful for us. And I think also for other companies who are merging, it's something to consider to use this tool just as a lightweight integration in the beginning. Okay, so handing
Patrick,
back to Dan.
Yeah, Patrick, there is a question from the audience, which I might want to put forward quickly.
Yes.
Which is, how do the Condense employee app and the planned integration of Kaisala into Teams compare or overlap?
Yeah, so that's a question that we have heard several times already from customers, because of course Microsoft is not sleeping and is bringing new functionality into Office 365 all the time. I would say the main difference between Condense and Kaisala is that Kaisala is mainly focusing on conversations. So it's, I'd say, if you simplify it, it's instead of using WhatsApp, you use Kaisala because it's protected. It's part of your IT, it's part of your company, and you don't have to give out your content to a provider that you maybe don't trust. But it's very, very much focused on conversations, whereas Condense also has a conversation part, but this is not our main focus. So our main focus is communication top-down and communication in groups and sharing of information. So you have seen the example with NG. That's not something you can do in Kaisala, for example, to have a structure of pages with content and then share it amongst people. So I think there is some overlap in functionality, but the scope of the two apps is not at all the same. And it depends a little bit on the use cases. If you're fine with just having a communication app, then Kaisala might be a good solution for you. Of course, with Condense, we also address people outside the Microsoft space. So we don't only address the Microsoft market, because Condense doesn't require any license in Office 365. You can use Condense just as it is, and you don't even need to have an Active Directory user. And that might be another issue if you have a lot of non-desk workers who actually don't have neither a corporate email address nor an Active Directory account. Then it will be very difficult to bring them to the Microsoft stack, whereas with Condense this is possible, because Condense also supports Azure Active Directory B2C. So that's, I would say, the answer to this.
Thank you, Patrick. Now, maybe another one. We have time for another question, and I'll put that to Dan. Let's say a customer needs a fully functional intranet and wants to reach blue-collar workers and needs to deliver comprehensive analytics to corp communications. Does it mean that he needs to license free products from LiveTiles?
Yeah.
Go Go ahead.
No, thank you. Yeah, that's a great question. So no, the customer will make one purchase. Technically, it is 2 products represented, but so I would look at what's referred to in the question as analytics, as the LiveTiles intelligence, which is aligned through the common backend that we now have between all the products. But it would effectively be Wizdom and Condense purchase. Condense can publish news to both SharePoint and traditional information workers as well as first-line workers. So that's the way we would solve that problem. And it also authenticates to users based on their rights and privileges, based on their Azure AD or the connection that they give to that particular user. So yes, just to summarize, it would be effectively one purchase, but 2 products between Wizdom and Condense with LiveTiles intelligence included.
Okay, leaving you to summarize then. Please.
Yeah, thanks. I'll just wrap up here. I know we're near the top of the hour. You know, we've tackled this idea of intelligent workplace today, and it being a concept and a journey. We do see some clear trends. We're spending a lot of time around this idea of omnipresence, so you'll see a lot more from us on that. Of course, using this omnipresence, but also delivering personalized and targeted access for all employees of any level. Again, whether it's an information worker or a first-line worker or a remote worker. We do see a big role for smart assistants and intelligent agents. Again, that's very use case driven by the customer and the scenario within their industry. And this is all underpinned by data, good data, accurate data, and context and user behavior. So we're excited to talk to you more about all this. If you could just move to the next slide, I might just do a quick plug here. We'll go one more slide, please. One of the things that we're going to do after this webinar is we're going to send you a survey to get your feedback. We'd love to hear from you. And if you fill out that survey, we're going to send you a limited edition of what we call our LiveTiles Teams game. One of the main things that we focus on is around design thinking in our company and making sure that we can engage users in a very visual manner. So we've created this Teams game around the concept of building and creating Microsoft Teams and channels to communicate with employees. And we think it's a great gamified approach that may help you with your clients or you as a end customer to do that. So we'd love to hear from you on the survey, and we'll get you this limited edition Teams game out to you in the mail as soon as you return that. So Ulz, I might hand it back to you to wrap up.
Who else?
Yes, sorry, unmuted now.
Yeah. Okay.
Victim of technology. We have here, I'm not going to talk to this. We're going to include this in the deck we share with you after the call. We have obviously a few representatives who actually might help you with any questions you come up with after this call, or asks you have, or you might have an existing license position you want to check what we can do for you, or you might even run a competitive product and you're eager to hear what we can do for you. So we will share those contacts with you, and obviously everyone in the call is open to, and happy to receive your questions as well. With that, on the last slide, we will share that with you, the contacts and information numbers and links. And with that, I want to say thank you for everyone who was able to make the call today, and thanks to our speakers, Dan and Patrick, and have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.